Hey, welcome to All Things Social Security. As you can see, we had a big snowstorm here up in the Poconos. Yeah, at least I'd say a foot of snow. So I did my little had my third lesson in snow blowing. But what I wanted to talk to you about was something that arose today with a person seeking representation, and I did connect with the person to get some details because I saw some concerns that regardless of whether I would be taking it, he should know about. So this has to do with, we speak about DLI, date last insured, and you can find videos on that under my channel. But it a lot of times a person, and I don't know how people remain uninformed on this, as we get into our adulthood. But when we are self-employed, and this is true whether we have a 1099 as a self-employed, say, gigger, or when your customers happen to be big companies and they issue a 1099 when they pay you, you are self-employed, but you get a 1099. All of my colleagues and I, we all get 1099s from the SSA. Ironically, the SSA isn't the one that's actually paying us. It's not the SSA's money or the US Treasury's money. It is the client's money, but the SSA, as you know, withholds a piece of their back benefits to pay the lawyer or the non-attorney rep. And then several years ago, they decided to make a 1099 situation out of it. I would have to imagine that they had concerns that representatives were not reporting the income, which is craziness to me. But in any event, 1099s, or if you don't get a 1099 because you have a business and your customers pay you, but they don't give you a 1099, they just pay their bill, pay the invoice, whatever. If you don't file your tax return, you're not going to get any Social Security credits for that earnings that you would have paid the taxes on. Okay. Now, what if you're just a slowpoke and you tend to be late with your tax returns? That's not that unusual. I think that's a stress creator. For self-employed people, I don't know how you sleep when you know you haven't filed your taxes. I would just be terrified. But that's just me. I'm a bit of a worrywart. So if, let's say you're looking back, so where are we at? We're at 23. We have like a month or two more to file our taxes for 23, to file them timely. Of course, then there's always the opportunity for an extension until October. But let's say we didn't file in 2022. Procrastination, whatever, you're not going to get the credits for that. So if you are in the middle of fighting a claim for Social Security disability, or you're planning to, your date last insured, if you're not working or if you're not filing those tax returns as a self-employed person, your date last insured is approaching. And the only way you can stop it is by reporting income earned and paying those taxes on it. So 2022, you could certainly file a belated tax return. You could always file, I think, a belated tax return. However, what's important to know is if you delay too long, even if you file the tax return and pay those taxes, what have you, you're not going to get Social Security earnings credits after a certain period of time, even if you do that. The rule is the 3-3-15 rule. Your return for year X has to be done within 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days at the end of year, from the end of year X, the earnings year. So for instance, this year, if you had 2021 earnings, if I'm doing the math right, you're going to want that filed by, I guess that would be April 15th. 3 months and 15 days after the third year. So if we had 21, 22 was 1 year, 23 was another year, 24 is the third year, 3-3-15, third year, third month, plus 15 days. So January, February, March, plus 15 puts us into April 15, which is kind of like the time we're normally supposed to have our tax returns in for the given year. But you could be giving up a lot if you're in that realm of potentially filing. You have filed, but you don't know if you're going to win. You might have to refile. If you have to refile and you're not insured after a denial for the next period of time that you're going to try for, you're going to be out of luck. Okay. This particular individual, it appeared like there was some procrastination with filing returns. So I just wanted to share with him that there is a deadline. So if there was work in 20, and that while you should still probably always file your return, that's not going to be a return he's going to get Social Security credits for, because they have that deadline. I don't know why they have the deadline. It doesn't necessarily seem fair when you consider other things that don't have such a deadline, like perhaps statutes of limitations by the IRS and whatnot, or even the SSA coming after people for overpayments. They don't seem to have a 3-3-15 rule for that. They do overpayment charges so many years later, it's not even funny. And by then, a person can barely defend themselves because they don't have the paperwork, because they had no idea it was an issue. Yeah, so the 3-3-15 rule. Give it some thought when you're filing, like right now, because you only have a few more weeks, seriously, right? Until April. And if you're in this boat, did you file your return in 21? If you did not, now's the time. If you're going to do it and you want to get Social Security earnings credits, now's the time to do it, because you only have a very short period of time. 2020, obviously, that's scrolled off the board. You're not getting credit for those. This, I do not think would, I haven't researched this, but I believe if you were a W-2, because your employer reported the earnings, and this is something we should look up, but I'm just going to throw it out there. And again, I'm not sure on the answer. If you're a W-2er, those earnings show up in the detailed earnings report that the SSA puts out, and the Office of Hearings Operations downloads it before a hearing to have more evidence of what work was done for other purposes, relevant to the hearing. So they will know about that earnings, and you'd tend to think they would know about 1099 earnings too, and they would show up. But I just know if you don't have a tax return, they're telling us, with that self-employed earnings, that is what's going to be the bar for you getting the credit. So that may not apply to W-2 lack of tax return, but don't hold me to it. You should definitely file just to protect yourself, if for no other reason. Who knows, maybe you'll be getting a refund. But anyway, so 2021 is right now the year that's about to scroll off your board if you haven't filed for that tax year. So I suggest you give it some thought as to whether you should be doing that. Okay. And of course, speak to a tax professional. Yeah, I think going back to the employers with the W-2s, I think the employers do report the income to the SSA. So that will show up and you'll get credit for it, regardless perhaps of whether you file a return. Because remember, not everybody always has to file returns. But it's those self-employed people like myself who the SSA has no idea what you're earning. In theory, you'd think again with a 1099 they would, because someone reported it, right? But in any event, you want to stay on top of that. Go to your earnings report in your ssa.gov/my account file access. Get into your file, download your earnings statement, and it's going to show you everything that the SSA says that they have in your file as to your earnings. So you'll know if you're getting credit for 2019, 2020, 2021. The unfortunate thing with the person I spoke to today is that without recent years' earnings, such as 19, 20, 21, I think his DLI is 2017. And it's very, very hard to prove a remote onset. So it's not a case I can take, because it's got to have a viable path, a recognizable path to prevailing. And because the DLI is so old and tax returns, perhaps if they should have been filed, were not filed, this person would not be getting credits for that would extend out his date last insured further. Maybe it could have gotten it to 2020 when another serious medical impairment struck him. That might have then been able to be included, but now it can't be because any subsequent medical impairment is after he didn't have the insurance. You can't claim a disability for a period of time you didn't buy the insurance for. And that's what DLI, date last insured, is all about. So get those earnings credits by filing those tax returns. All right. Bye, guys.